It's the Ugly American Werewolf in London rock podcast with your hosts, the Wolf and Action Jackson, who are keeping rock alive by talking classic rock, hard rock, progressive rock, heavy metal, 80s music, early MTV, UK vs. US chart success, and much more. This is the home of classic album and live concert reviews and your place for interviews with artists and legends. You're rocking with the Wolf. Hey out there, rock and rollers. Welcome to episode number 192 of the Ugly American Werewolf in London rock podcast. Brought to you by me, your host, Mac B. the Wolf, and I will be joined, as always, by my partner in crime from the East Coast of the United States of America, Mr. Gary Action Jackson. And we want to thank everybody who tuned in last week to our show on Oasis's Definitely Maybe, which is turning 30 here. Huge album in the UK. Not so much in the US. And that's kind of what our show is about, pointing out some differences between the success of a band, whether they're from the US or the UK, in the US versus the UK. And Oasis couldn't be bigger in England and a lot of parts of the world. Could be bigger here in the US. We talk about that on the show. But this week's show is about a band who pretty well hit success huge around the world, but were more of an American phenomenon than anything else. And they were kind of the epitome of LA's Sunset Strip, and then to some degree, America in the 80s, and that's Motley Crue. That's right, Vince Neil, Nikki Sixx, Mick Mars, and Tommy Lee, who terrorized people in strip clubs and drug dealers and band management and hotels all around the world, but particularly in the US. They had this brash attitude about everything and some aggressive rock with heavy riffs that was really all about picking up girls and partying, and that's it. And their fifth album, Dr. Feelgood, was no different. The one difference is, though, they got sober to do this. And another big difference, they brought in Bob Rock to produce them, who's probably best known for his work with Metallica. But it was this work on Dr. Feelgood, their fifth album, that caught Lars's attention in Metallica to get Bob to come work on the Black Album. Of course, the rest is history on that. But this shows a more polished Crue. Maybe not on the lyrics side, still a lot of silly, juvenile, sexual lyrics and everything. But the sound is cleaner, it's slicker. Still got that heavy and rawness, but just a lot more radio friendly. And with 5 singles, this thing really blew up. It went to number 1 in the US, their only number 1 album. And they had 5 singles that charted in the US. Not so much in the UK. Did all right in the UK. But Motley Crue were on top of the world in the US at this point. And they did tour the world. They did a lot of dates. They played to millions of people. Made a lot of money. But the band was on the precipice of breaking up at this point. And I think they just, once they were rich and sober, it was hard for them to get along. And we'll get into all that here on the show. But first, we have a little bit of business to take care of. As usual, we like to mention we are proud members of the Pantheon Podcast Network, a family of over 100 shows. You can check out more at pantheonpodcast.com or follow on socials at Pantheon Pods. And we got to give a shout out to our amazing sponsor, rarevinyl.com, who's based in the UK, folks, but they have records and collections from all around the world. And if you're looking for first edition albums in mint condition, if you're looking for rare singles, you're looking for Japanese imports, you're looking for box sets, looking for that rare single, looking for picture discs, looking for a poster, they might just have it because they have over 250,000 items in stock and they ship all around the world. And as our sponsor, they give us a code, UGLY, UGLY, that if you use that at checkout, you can save 10% off one entire order. Not just one item, but one entire order. And I know some of our Oasis fans and listeners took advantage of that in the last week. And so I encourage you, your record collection will thank you if you go to rarevinyl.com and use UGLY to save 10% off one entire order. Now back to Motley Crue. In 1989, the quote-unquote hair metal hair bands were all over the place. Def Leppard just had a huge run on the Hysteria album. Bon Jovi had a huge run on their New Jersey album. Every week, someone with long hair and loud guitars were getting on the radio and specifically getting on MTV, like Whitesnake, like LA Guns. And Motley Crue, being the kings of the sunset and hair metal and girl stealing scene, were ready to take their crown in 1989. So that's what we're doing. We're going track by track on Dr. Feelgood as it turns 35 here on The Wolf. Now, before we get into Motley Crue's Dr. Feelgood, which is
Mhm.
all about sex and really that's it.
No, I think they talk about cars too.
They may talk about cars and skydiving naked from an airplane, which may not really even be that sexual.
I bet it's not when you're in the middle of it. This was a really bad idea.
Why do my balls feel like they're about to fly off? But before we get to that, I do want to take a little time to address a note from one of our regular listeners on the episode we did a couple weeks back on Blind Faith, because we were talking about the album cover being this prepubescent girl naked, certainly topless on the cover, which of course was banned in America, and
Rightly so.
we didn't want to look at it either. But he kind of wanted to give us some texture on the whole thing. Texture. Context, that's what it was, not texture.
Okay.
See how early it is right now? Anyway,
Uh-huh.
I very much enjoyed Ride the Lightning and Blind Faith episodes. Despite being a huge rock fan, I've never really gotten Metallica's as more of a new wave of British heavy metal bands at the time, found Metallica a bit too dark. Therefore, it was a useful introduction for me and interesting to find out more about the history of the band. In relation to Blind Faith, I just wanted to give some perspective regarding the cover art. Whilst it might seem shocking now, while I was growing up in England in the 70s, it was not unusual to see children naked in public. In nice weather, it was normal for younger children to play naked on beaches and in parks. And in my school, up to the age of about 11, girls did not wear tops to gym. Children were not so sexualized then. In 1969, seeing an image like that probably wouldn't have caused concern. Different times, I suppose. Anyway, it was great to hear your review on the album, which I hadn't heard in a very long time, but have been listening to again as a result. All the best, guys, and keep up the good work from our buddy Simon. Okay, Simon, so thank you very much for listening and for your thoughtful email. You're right, times do change, but even back then it was banned in America. Now, you know, the Puritan Americans weren't ever going to let that happen. They wouldn't let it happen now any more than they would have let it happen back then. And I'm sure it wasn't a sexualized thing. I mean, we read about the artist being, the photographer being like, I wanted to create this image of innocence, right? Well, okay, fine. Then you've got to go younger, dude. You got to have like a 6-year-old kid on there. You know, like Robert Plant's kids playing naked on Houses of the Holy. That's not offensive. Although I think some of that was banned, or they had to,
Clean it up a little.
yeah, or they had to put the banner in certain places, like on their rear ends. You know, on some places. It still doesn't mean I want to look at it. You know what I mean? It's just it catches you off guard, and it's like, God, I didn't really want to see that. I just want to listen to some cool rock and roll. But we appreciate your perspective and from pointing all that out to us.
hmm And thank you as always for listening.
That's right. Now let's get into something that's completely over sexualized, and that's Motley Crue.
hmm
And their breakthrough, I guess you'd have to call it that, Dr. Feelgood, which for us, you know, it comes out in America at least on August 28th, 1989. It's right before our junior year in high school. And it was certainly part of the soundtrack of high school for us.
You want to talk about right down the middle for high school age boys? Here we go. Tee it up and let it fly because this was everything you were looking for in a record at that point in time.
And they're a known quantity. I mean, somebody you've known for a while now. This is their 5th album. And while they started off very raw, they did get better at their craft. When we were talking about them last year, what album did we do last year?
Shout at the devil.
Oh, my goodness. Okay. So they still weren't, they still couldn't play that well. Mick could play, but a lot of it's kind of furious and crazy. I don't know that it necessarily always fit what they were doing, other than it was fast and aggressive, and that fits everything that Motley Crue does.
Right.
But now, you know, they're a little more grown up at this point. They are all, in fact, sober at this point. Which, if you watch the movie that was on Netflix, like, okay, this was hard for them to do. They go to strip clubs, ordering water after shows and stuff like that. And one by one, they all kind of fell off. However, they decided to be clean, and I think you can really hear it on the record.
Yeah. And made the change to pick up Bob Rock as the producer. I don't know. I don't know how it's like you can't fight your nature that long. I mean, these guys they're made to just go insane.
Right.
And I think up until this point, people knew who they were, but a lot
Right.
of people knew who they were because of other things than music. I mean,
Because of
everybody
their
knew.
antics. That's right.
Correct. Everybody knew that Nikki Sixx had died for a while.
Hmm.
I remember when Tommy married Heather Locklear. What was that, 86 or 87?
I don't know.
And that was a huge, I remember being in the grocery store and it was a huge, like,
Oh yeah.
not tabloid, but like what was like People or something had a big spread. And I'm like, people really care about this. But Heather Locklear was a huge star at that point in time. And,
Right.
she married the bad boy rocker. And so, yeah, they were a lot of it. A lot of the image of Motley Crue was, yeah, not the music, but more what they did outside of there. And then you had Mick, who was like, you had this band with this furious guitar player who you didn't really hear anything about him. Like
Right.
he was always just kind of put to the side with these other maniacs, and then Vince was just there for a good time.
Right. There just to screw everything, with two legs. And really all of them were, but certainly those three, Vince, Tommy, Nikki, they're out to screw everything. But
Correct.
then plus they're doing a lot of drugs. Whereas Mick, because he's already got this pain from his back condition, this like it gets worse all the time. I guess you would call that a degenerative situation.
Yeah, where your spine literally fuses together.
Yeah, it's like he's not a
Ugh.
disease; it's a curse. I'm like,
Yeah.
I believe you, Mick. That sounds horrible, man. But so they've been building for a while, and it's like, what was their last album? Girls, girls, girls. Yeah,
Mhm.
okay, yeah, we know.
Yeah.
There's about strippers all over the nation, even in Paris. Right wherever you go, there's strippers, and they're fans of Motley Crue, and Motley Crue are fans of theirs. But now they're sober. They've got the record company behind them. They've got a good producer in Bob Rock. In fact, it was hearing what he did with Motley on this album that prompted Lars Ulrich to say, hey, maybe you want to come produce our next record. He did a really good job of cleaning some of this up and stylizing it and doing some production magic that you never could have done with Motley back in the day because they wouldn't have had the patience or understanding for it. It seemed to me.
Did you have to take a look at any of the demos that they put out?
From these songs,
Yeah.
from the deluxe album,
Yeah.
no, because I'm like, it's just going to be rough, and it's a little rough anyway. So
It was rough, but it was interesting to see where you started to where you got to. And so, yeah, you can tell that Bob came in there and said, "Okay, I think I like the bones of this, but
mhm.
we're gonna sharpen this into something that's gonna sell what, like 6 million in the United States."
6 million US, that's right. And it went to top 5 a lot of places around the world. I'm talking,
Mhm.
or top 10 anyway. Australia, Canada, Finland, Norway, New Zealand, Sweden, Switzerland. Number 4 in the UK, which is really good for them over there. But number 1, Billboard, US, number 1. That's a huge achievement for them. And then they went out and toured like maniacs. They just hit the road hard, and it paid off.
Which I'm sure was great for sobriety.
Well, yeah, I know. It did. Eventually, they all kind of think I got sick of it. Just like, God, this sober is just boring, man. I want to do this.
Well, the other thing too is that if you watch the kind of the press stuff that they did, like the MTV little specials, and
Hmm.
even if you watch the videos, they kind of make it seem like, hey, we're all in this together. We're the best of friends, and we just hang out, and we're a
Hmm.
group of dudes. That's not what was going on at all. They didn't really like each other at this point in time. At least certain factions of the band didn't like each other.
Yeah, I
So
know.
I can imagine that tour was probably not the greatest time.
Especially as relentless as it was. I mean,
Yeah.
they did, it was over 150. I can't even find the notes on it. But I mean, the beginning of the Same Old Situation video, they talk about all the shows they did and all the people they went to see
Mhm.
and, playing huge shows, playing festivals, all that kind of stuff. So yeah, they were on top of the world at this point. Like, here's the bad boys, but they're sober. They can still play. But obviously after this, it didn't work out. I mean, Vince left for a while, and kind of depends on which story you believe.
Right. Left was dismissed.
Was he
Who
kicked
knows?
out? Did he
Right.
leave? Depends on which side of the coin you're on. But Bob Rock chose to record their parts separately to minimize the conflict with each other.
Which I'm sure was pitched as, hey guys, here's the deal. I can get a better sound and then I can play with it individually if we record it separately. But yeah, you're right. So they don't like end up throwing things or swinging instruments at each other.
Yeah, so I mean, it worked. I mean, good for you, Bob. You did that with Motley. You gave him a great sound.
Well, and then as you mentioned, we were talking about Shout at the Devil. It reminded me on this, you're never, ever, ever gonna get that vocal performance from Vince. Like it's all studio tricks. You record it 1,000 times, different ways, play with it. So you really can't record it live anyway and just put it right to tape.
Well, that's right. Vince can't really sing that well, but he sings these songs well
Correct.
for Vince, right? Yeah,
Right.
it's just kind of they write songs for him. Nicky writes the lyrics that fit Vince's voice and fit the unabashed, everlasting party scene that they were the saviors of, right? What's interesting to me is because you got to do your research, and on Wikipedia they quote two authors on here.
I saw that. Yeah.
And both of those men have been on our show. First of all, our Pantheon brother, Martin Popoff, who we've had on twice, wrote that Dr. Feelgood is an album made by a dumb band trying really hard. That's funny, Martin. I mean, I don't know if you're saying the guys in the band are dumb. I'll probably back you up on that for the most part. I don't know if they're a dumb band. I mean, they come out of L.A. in the late 70s, early 80s. This is what you get. This is the lifestyle. This is what they're all about. And other people say they're not out to win humanitarian awards or impress us with lyrical muscle. They're just here to rock out. But it's our buddy Mick Wall who is, as he said on our show, does not care about the artist's feelings. He's trying to tell a story for the reader that the reader will appreciate. In the 2009 reissue, which would have been the 20th anniversary reissue, this was the first time Motley Crue actually became well known for music. Until then, their unthinking mashup of glam and metal had made them a hoot on stage, but a disappointment on record. And though pushed close by last year's shock return with the Weighty Saints of Los Angeles, this album is the best Motley Crue have ever released. And I have to agree with him there. Anyway, what was I remember Theater of Pain was big because it had Smoke in the Boys' Room. Then you got Girls, Girls, Girls. They're on their motorcycles, going around the Sunset Strip, whistling at girls. I'm like, okay, when are these guys going to grow up? And it's kind of like, okay, this album, from the title track and kind of the opening song, for the most part, the opening song on the record, Dr. Feelgood, you're telling a story. It's not just about getting laid in L.A. and chasing girls. It's a story about a drug dealer who comes up through the ranks. I'm like, this is it's a little more mature, and the sound is slick and crisp.
Yeah, they did a really good job of kind of mixing those two things together at a time when people really wanted to hear this. You wanted to hear stories about, especially for us on the East Coast, you wanted to hear that LA was this mythical place where, you kind of knew all of this stuff already. Like, yeah, there's, everybody in LA does cocaine, right? Absolutely. Here's a song about this. And there's hot chicks everywhere out there. Of course there are. Here's another song about that and what's going on. But it was kind of a little heavy duty. Like if you listen to the lyrics of Dr. Feelgood, I mean, yeah, it's a nonstop deal that we still can't really get a hold of. I mean, there's still a giant drug problem everywhere. And these guys were the poster children for it.
Yeah, and it's not like a glamorous one anymore. It's kind of a nasty one. But they recorded this in Vancouver, which at the time was a very popular thing to do. I guess there's tax considerations for all that. But if you go to the Making of Pump by Aerosmith, it's a video where you learn a lot about him. Of course, John Kolodner of Geffen fame is up there visiting with him, and Steven's hopping around him. Ooh, do you have 3 singles? What about 4?
Yeah.
But because other people are up there recording at the same time, you've got Steven Tyler singing on Same Old Situation and Sticky Sweet and doing the intro to Slice Your Pie. You've got Bryan Adams to sing backing on Same Old Situation, Sticky Sweet. And Jack Blades of Night Ranger fame doing those 2 songs as well, with Robin Zander of Rick Nielsen of Cheap Trick backing on She Goes Down, and Skid Row and others singing on Time for Change. So there's suddenly Vancouver's kind of the new LA to record, right?
And I think it probably had something to do with, like you said, taxes. But I think, and I'm just going off memory here, I think the dollar went a lot farther there too.
Yeah, and although drug addicts can always find drugs, I feel like Vancouver was a cleaner place then. It's not so much now if you watch Intervention, but
Yeah.
it's definitely going through trouble. But I mean, when you have fewer friends around
I
like
think
you do in LA,
that's part of it too. You take everybody up there. Nobody can go home at night because no one lives there. So yeah, you have a little more of a bubble there that you can contain people.
So they come out heavy, they come out swinging, but what was your relationship with Motley Crue like personally there, Jackson?
No, I mean, like you said, I had heard Smoking in the Boys' Room, Home Sweet Home,
Looks to
Girls,
Kill.
Girls, Girls. Yeah, Looks to Kill. So it was kind of like, okay, I was certainly familiar with them, but to me, this one kind of took it to a place where people who didn't know them before were listening to this record. Like everybody had this record. It was everywhere. Everybody knew about it. And so I think it really marked a point in time where they had gotten to a place where they were famous enough to have the name recognition, but also had the sound that would make people who weren't fans before listen to this. They were more mainstream. But to me, it wasn't really that they'd sold out. I mean, they seemed like the same old scumbags they always were.
Exactly.
So I think that they just kind of hit it at exactly the right time. But yeah, I remember everybody had a copy of this.
Yeah, I mean, and you couldn't get away from it. It was on the radio. It was all over MTV. It was all over MTV. If ever there was a band built for MTV, it was Motley Crue in the late 80s, and Def Leppard had kind of had their run. They're obviously pretty sexual in their lyrics. You watch their videos, the girls are all over them, in the videos. But it's still got a modicum of class about it, and some rock and roll style about it, where this is just straight up. And the lyrics, just like we did last year with Shout at the Devil, some of them are preposterously sophomoric and sexual and not that good in some spots. Sorry, Nikki, but they're just not that great in some spots.
And I'm sure we'll point those out in just a few moments.
We'll get there.
Right.
Hey, what's up, everybody? It's rock and roll comedian Don Jameson, and you are listening to the great, the fantastic podcast, The Ugly American Werewolf in London.
We've got to kind of jump in here because there's actually a lot to go over. I mean, 6 million sold, 5 singles.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of a big deal. And 5 videos. And the fact of the matter is when you've got the money to make 5 videos, the thing is selling well.
Right. So let's get into this one. You said you didn't listen to TNT. It's basically like a minute and change. So
I don't even think it's that. I mean, I think it's like 40 seconds or something like that. It's just some noise, some stuff going on, some sirens. You got Mick wailing on the guitar.
Yeah.
It's an opener. It's like E5150 on Black Sabbath's Mob Rules or something like that.
Or 1984 with just the piano part.
Yeah, it's just a little something there. I guess Nikki gets credit for all of that because all the songs are always written, all the lyrics are always written by Nikki Sixx. And then most of the music, I mean, Nikki's listed on every single song.
Yeah, I mean, it's his band. Like it's Nikki Sixx, and then whoever, either he writes it by himself or somebody helps him, but he's the creative director.
Yeah, and it's mostly he and Mick who do all the music.
Mm-hmm.
Occasionally, there's one for all 4 of them, but generally speaking, it's Nikki and Mick doing the writing. So you get past this little opener song, and you go right into the title track, Dr. Feelgood, with that heavy dun 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 dun. So okay, they're back.
I saw this thing, and I don't even remember where it was, and I couldn't find it again for this one, but it's something about Bob Rock saying, okay, what are these guys known for? What can we showcase here? And it's the drums.
Yep.
Just that pounding over the top drums. And if they come out heavy on this first one.
They do, and it's the lead single too. They lead off. It's released, I think, the same day the album is, August 28th, and it's backed with Sticky Sweet, which we'll get to. Went to 6 in Billboard and 7 on Mainstream Rock, and the video was strong, but only went to 50 in the UK. So our friends in the UK were kind of like, whatever. They just didn't catch it, which means they didn't see the video much. It's interestingly enough, the only gold single they ever had in the US. Dr. Feelgood. But the video's interesting in that you hear the thundering drum beats, coming at you at the beginning. It's like you're in the desert, you're scooting out there, and then there's this huge tent. But then under the tent, there's this whole apocalyptic world underneath there, post-apocalyptic. And there's Motley kind of doing their thing, and Tommy pounding those drums, and Nicky barely seeing, past his bangs or whatever. Vince just mugging for the camera, because that's what Vince does. But it tells the story of Jimmy, a second-head hood, who's messing with the Latino mob and working the streets and paying off cops and moving on up in a Scarface kind of a way,
Yeah, which I can't tell you. I knew Scarface at that point in time, but yeah, especially the end scene there where he's sitting at his desk. Yes, and it was, like I said, I thought in 1989, like, this just is what happens there. Everybody's just selling drugs on the Sunset Strip, and after a while, you're good. This is how you're going to end up.
Yep, that's right. And that's exactly what, at first you're paying off the cops, then the cops are coming to raid your home.
Mm-hmm.
Now, David Giles of British Magazine Music Week kind of said the sounds to be huge and fulsome, but it is disappointingly trebly. I actually didn't get that except for Vince's voice, maybe.
Yeah, no. And again, they write it for him.
Right,
to play to his strength.
That's right. Vince is not a great singer, but he can sing these songs pretty well. And it fits their image, singing about a drug dealer, that kind of thing.
Right.
And it's got that he's the one you call Dr. Feelgood.
Right. The hook in there, that they can scream back to you during the chorus. Absolutely.
But one of the lines is selling sugar to the sweet. People on the street call this Jimmy's Town.
That's right. Everybody did. And I'm sure there were a million dudes like this.
Yeah, there were. It's an easy thing to sell. It sells itself.
Right. Exactly.
So, but I always loved it. I mean, I always thought it was a killer video. I always thought the sound was great. Yeah, Dr. Feelgood talking about drug dealers. And now they have that perspective, right? They know all about drug dealers.
That's the thing. It wasn't like it was somebody else, it wasn't like it was Night Ranger talking about Dr. Feelgood. Like, no,
right.
These dudes were very familiar with the whole operation of buying and selling illegal narcotics.
And though I think Nicky is fairly articulate, and I like the way he tells his stories now. Yeah, I mean, he was a full-blown junkie back in the day, man.
Correct.
And kind of wanted to be, from what I can tell, because, he'd had the shitty childhood and all that stuff. And he just said, I wanted Motley Crue to be over the top everything. We don't just all want to get laid. We want to screw every girl on the Sunset Strip. We don't just want to experiment with drugs. We want to take every drug that there is,
Right.
Excess is success when your name's Motley Crue.
I was having a conversation with somebody, and this was years ago, and they were talking about, Motley Crue sucks. They're terrible. And I was like, if you run the math, they're actually probably the greatest band that's ever been around.
Their talent level.
and why did you get into this business? Sell a lot of records? Check. Party all the time? Check. Screw every hot woman you can get your hands on? Check. Still be relevant today? They're still selling out places. They never really went away. They had a couple of years in the 90s where, they had they took some time off. Right.
John Corabi came in. Still, no, and they write the dirt. When you think, okay, well, Motley Crue's over. Write the dirt, bestseller. Could not put it down. Could not put it down. Then they come out and do this Netflix movie. That helps them get back on the charts. That helps a whole new young generation discover who they are and what their music's all about. And when you humanize them, like Vince Neil loses a daughter, to cancer.
Yeah.
Well, God, that's horrible. Tommy loses Heather Locklear because he gets caught cheating on her with a porn star. Okay,
Did I do that?
Nicky ODs, all that kind of stuff. It humanizes them, and they're like, hey, we're just four guys. Everybody count it out, man. Let's go do this. Everyone's like, rah, rah, Motley Crue. They're also the four guys who almost brought down Motley Crue.
Well, and they retired, didn't they, in like 2015 or something?
Oh, they've retired a couple of times, yeah.
Yeah,
but they signed the contract. We'll never tour again. They're like, what? We'll get paid what? Hey guys, let's go tour again.
Well, that's the thing. The people are still wanting to see them play live. So absolutely. But yeah, you're right. I think they never shied away from like, well, yes, there were some drug problems. No, they'll sit there and tell you, about the time they were so wasted, they were trying to outdrink, outparty Ozzy.
Mm-hmm.
And then he was like, okay, he gets down and starts snorting ants off the ground.
And they're pissed, it's like, what the hell, dude? What's wrong with you?
And I think there was a story too about Slash and somebody else was trying to hang out with them with Tommy and Nikki, and Slash he's trying to go, shot for shot, and that doesn't happen. And he passes out, and then they make his official press pass, like Nikki's balls or something on his face. Because he's like, don't try. Yeah, you're going to lose. Don't try and run with us.
Yeah. And Tommy's like, so we've taken too much cocaine, and we're like, oh God, we got to come down from this cocaine. Let's shoot some Jack Daniels into our veins. And Tommy's like, what are we doing shooting Jack Daniels? We could just drink it. What are we doing? Because we're a Motley Crue? This doesn't make any sense.
Hey, everybody. This is Britt Lightning from Vixen, and you're listening to the Ugly American Werewolf in London.
All right, we got to move on.
All right.
Slice of your pie.
Uh-huh. A
Now,
song
this
about
is
baked goods.
Yes, this is now exactly what you would expect from Motley Crue. Hey, pretty, pretty with the sweet, sweet eyes. Order me up another slice of your pie.
Right.
Oh my goodness. This is just about screwing a hot young girl. Schoolgirl studied up well on hoochie coochie. Lick lips kitten with a whip, so undress me. I mean, I don't even know if you could get this released now. Whiplash, I never looked at you in high school. Hot child, always walk behind you for the rear view. Good God, baby, blow my fuse when you walk this way. What could that be about? 19, seductive ballerina, so trashy. At least you made her 19 is all I can say, because she probably wasn't. But anyway,
She told me she was 19.
Yeah, I don't go around asking for ID. But Steven Tyler does a little bit of the intro here. Now look, and there's a little pedal steel at the beginning from Nick. But there are some Beatlesque harmonies with the background singers here. And I saw a note on that was actually something that Bob tried to do. That Slice of Your Pie was a little like
Oh, I'm So Heavy.
I'm So Heavy,
Yeah.
or She's So Heavy.
She's So Heavy.
She's So Heavy, which I didn't think of She's So Heavy, but I'm like, as soon as I hear that, I'm like, yeah, that's the Beatles. How did Bob get them to go for that kind of thing?
I think probably it was a deal where in hiring him, they wanted to be more legitimate, to be more of a professional band. And probably big fans of the Beatles also. So putting those two things together, sure, let's give it a try.
Well, there's some shredding from Mick at the beginning of the solo, and then it kind of goes into a blues thing. It's got a good groove on this, but the lyrics are bad.
Yeah, I would agree with you. If you just heard the music to this, it's not a bad song. It's just, it kind of gets ruined by I trust me, I want to hear songs about hot chicks, but you got to make it a little more subtle than this.
Yeah, and then they slow down again. They kind of do the Beatles thing again. I feel that Bob's really trying to dress up the music because he knows the words are just rotten. I mean, even for teenage boys, I get it already. Slice your pie, you know what he's talking about? Yeah, kid, I do. And then it goes on too long. I think by the 3.5 minute mark, it's like, is this over now? No, there's still 45 seconds left of nonsense. And what's Vince doing at the end? He's making some kind of weird noises.
Yeah.
I don't know. The title is very Motley Crue. The lyrics are very Motley Crue. But it's kind of like the old Crue when they didn't really know what they're doing. Like, let's just sing about screwing. Yeah, man. Now next is Rattlesnake Shake.
Mm-hmm.
First line, she's a sex machine. Okay, here we go. Here we go. But Mick is doing some interesting stuff. Pretty heavy riff to start off with here.
Yeah, I think this is one where the music is pretty good, and then it was like, we need some lyrics. Okay, give me 14 seconds, and I'll figure this out.
Yeah, here, Vince, sing this. Oh, you can't spit this out here. Now sing it this way. Oh, okay. She's a sex machine. She keeps her engine hot and her motor clean. Okay. The way she shakes her hips and licks her lips. Got it. She's got sassy class, bring you to your knees when she shakes her ass. Sexy motions, just take my time. The way she moves her lips up and down my spine. Yeah, this is about oral sex, as far as I can tell.
And then it's doing the rattlesnake shake, 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 shake. Okay, that's just like I said. We don't have a whole lot here, so let's just pad this out a little bit. And
It's
then they've
all I
got
can
that.
take.
Yeah, they've got that kind of weird like synth horn part to it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I know. Got the rattle. Snake wants to spit. Call 976 and let my hand do the rest. Remember those 976 numbers you can call back in around this time? It's like, call 976 girl.
That's so weird. I saw an Instagram about that, and it was like just a clip from the commercial. And the guy's like, I went out and spent all this money at the club, and I still didn't score. I know what to do. And yeah, it's some chick. Yeah, call now for hot conversation.
Oh
It was like
God.
$2 a minute.
I know, like, who does this?
I don't know. I don't know.
but-
Serial killers.
It has kind of a funky bass breakdown in it, but it's all about sex with a slutty girl. Are those horns? Bob is what I asked, and it's like, yeah, it's something called the margarita horns.
Oh, okay. So it is actually horns and not some kind of synth thing that they programmed. So cool, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah. Let's skip past this one.
All right.
Let's get to Kickstart My Heart.
Okay.
All right. Second single out November 20th, backed with She Goes Down. Now, this only went to 27 Billboard and 18 mainstream rock, but it went gold in the UK despite not charting, which is interesting.
Yeah.
And it went to 17, I think, in 2019. Now, is that around the movie? It might have been.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
To me, this is their best since Looks to Kill. You know, Looks to Kill is my favorite.
Okay.
But that's early Crue. They couldn't play that much. Now they do this, which is a little more technical. I think it's their best. I think it's the best if like you said, you got one song to show me who Motley Crue is.
Yeah, I would pick this one as well. I like the video was cool because it showed them pulling up in the Dr. Feelgood. I guess it's an ambulance.
Yeah, kind of an
out-
old school one.
Yeah, out in front of the whiskey. You got Sam Kinison, who was huge at that time, and I guess a friend of theirs, which that was probably a whole nother
Makes
batch
sense.
of stories. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. But it was cool because they had that intro, and you knew what it was when it came on MTV. Okay, now I can get set, crank up the volume,
Turned the knob up. Yes.
and I guess they had this, and Mick said there was something missing, and then he came up with that intro that sounds like a car revving.
Yep.
And that, to me, that just makes it.
It's so cool. Yeah. It's such a good adrenaline song, a driving song. It's like, this is so good. I know maybe it didn't chart as well as some of the others, but to me, this is so killer. And it's kind of, they're in black and white at the whiskey most of the time. They're like, yeah, man, this is the whiskey. Back where it all began. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Home Sweet Home.
Tommy's still so young at this point.
62, I think.
62. So here's 89 when this comes out. He's not quite 27. He's still 26.
Mm-hmm. And honestly, like they make a big deal out of that. Vince was only born in 61.
He's just a year older than Tommy.
Yeah.
But Tommy was living with his parents, whereas Vince was living with the slutty girls who had already kind of screwed their way into a lot of money and ditched their old man husband, and now they want to play with a young guy. He was already out living on his own, had been for a while. Mm-hmm. Now, Nicky is not that much older. I mean, he's like 3 years older than Tommy or something like that. Of course, Mick's the old man.
That's the best scene in the dirt. I love that. How old are you, Mick? Anyway, go fuck yourself.
It's so funny.
No, what do you say? Go fuck yourself, like a teenager.
Yeah. But I love the song.
Yeah.
It's killer it to this day, and it's got the big whoa.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's what Motley Crue's quote unquote backing singles singer harmonies. That's what it's all about. It's basically screaming into the microphone, you know. Something you could do on stage while you're playing. Tommy's wearing his headset because he's got to like spin around and go up in the air and stuff like that.
Correct.
I think this was the tour he just kind of went up in the air and did his solo like at the top of the arena, in the middle of the arena, like basically hanging over center court.
Mm-hmm. And this, I think it's the one where it didn't flip around a little bit, so he had to be actually strapped into the thing.
I think that was the previous one. That was, or even maybe two, like where he did spin around. I remember it was a Wild Side video. I feel like is
okay,
where that was showcased. This one took him up in the air and took him out.
Oh, out over the stage. Okay,
right?
I mean, over the crowd.
That's right. Yeah.
Okay.
And he's kind of the strength of Motley Crue, his playing and his style, to be honest with you. Yeah.
Yeah. And at the beginning of the thing, at the video where he's he's doing the guitar work, and then he does that stick spin. Mm-hmm. That's the coolest thing ever. He can do it the fastest. He
really can. Yeah.
And just like he's just getting ready to just beat the absolute shit out of the drums.
Yeah. I mean, it's something to behold. He's worth the price of admission, to be honest with you. And he can still do it pretty darn well too. But I just we'll get into the next song. Love Kickstart My Heart, maybe their favorite. It's a different era, Looks That Kill versus Kickstart My Heart.
And he's got the talk box too at the end, which I always thought was cool.
Yes, very Peter Frampton, Jeff Beck, Joe Walsh of you there, Mick. Yeah. That's not everybody has that. Okay, next is Without You. Now look, at this time, this is what it was all about. You do your first single or maybe two that are the hard rockers for the guys, but you got to have that ballad in there for the ladies. And this is always the one that did the best, generally speaking, on these kind of albums. And this is the third single, comes out February 3rd, 1990, backed with Slice of Your Pie. So you got the front, Without You. It's just like, singing about the lament of not being with you anymore. And then the other side is Slice of Your Pie. Once again, because every girl loves a bad boy with a heart of gold, right?
Right.
Once again, does well in America. 8 Billboard, 11 mainstream rock. 8 Billboard is awfully good for them. Top 10 Billboard. But 39 UK, which means it barely snuck in to the top 40 where people may have seen the video. And I got to tell you, the video is a big production video that they spent some money on.
Right.
And Mick looks the best he ever has or ever would, to be honest with you. Cleaned up. You can see his face. He doesn't look like an alien. He just looks like a human without much of a tan.
He's like a vampire.
Without you, sailing lost at sea. Without you, the world comes down on me. Without you in my life, I slowly will die. But with you by my side.
But the girl in the video, I never thought she fit because she was just kind of like too innocent. She almost had like a European vibe to her.
Okay.
And honestly, there's not much about her. we don't know much about this girl.
Interesting. Was it a friend of the director or something? Because I was directed by a woman, which is I didn't know until now, and I thought was a little strange that you'd want to work with these guys, but okay.
Yeah, it was Mary Lambert directed and wrote the video, which is the band on a sound stage with stone pillars, and Vince can knock them down. It's like, oh, look how tough I am, kind of thing. And the animated sequence at the beginning with this coin, with like kind of like the pyramid on it.
Right.
She did all that. It was filmed at the Grand 1894 Opera House in Galveston.
Texas?
Yeah.
Okay.
On January 15th, 1990, after they played Houston. So they're out on the road, gigging everywhere. It's like, okay, you got a day off, but we're going to Galveston to go in to the Opera House and film this stuff for you. But there's not much on the girl. So
yeah, you're right.
Whoever she was.
Yeah, it doesn't feel like it. You look at the other videos that they have, and no, this person doesn't fit. But maybe it's like, I don't know. Maybe we're trying to see more of this is somebody who I want to spend my life with and not just miss right now.
Well, yeah, but of course that's just a bunch of nonsense.
Well, that's just a fantasy.
I'm sure they all took a shot at her, or I'm sure one of them got to her. It's just kind of the way it is. But you can see Vince really mugging it up for the camera on this one for sure. You got the slowdown in the bridge with Mick kind of on that pedal steel again.
I was going to say this is kind of a cheesy song. This is, you knew it was going to be on the record because it had to be. Really, the reason I'm here is for Mick to play that filthy slide guitar.
Absolutely. That makes it redeemable for me. Otherwise, like, you're just catering to the girls with this
Correct.
one, because that's what everybody did in this late 80s period. The hard rock boys would all have one little slowdown, like the Home Sweet Home song.
Right.
Like, okay, we gotta have one, right? It's not horrible. It's not the one I go to. It's not what I go to for Motley Crue.
Yeah, it's passable. But yeah, the slide is what makes it palatable to me.
This is Uncle Steve from Uncle Steve's Iron Maiden Zone, and you are listening to The Wolf and Action Jackson on the Ugly American Werewolf in London podcast right now.
Anyway, getting to what I guess would have been the second side with Same Old Situation. This was kind of the CD era for me.
Yeah.
And it's the sixth song, or maybe it's the seventh if you include Terror in Tinseltown. Goes to Same Old Situation. A very cliched kind of title. It's kind of Aerosmithy because they do a lot of cliche titles, and Steven talks in cliches. To be honest with you. But this is a fun one. This was the fifth and final release. It was released, because Without You was February of 1990, which is amazing. They filmed the video on the 15th, and then it's out by the 3rd of February. This is out July 31st. So almost a year, 11 months after they put out the album. They got their fifth single going on,
Yeah.
And it, 34 mainstream, 78 Billboard. So that's not, I think people are just kind of starting to get worn out on this one. Maybe they've worn out their welcome on this point. I think the song is actually pretty good, and it's a performance video. And at the beginning, they're talking about, how many shows and how many millions of people they play to around the world, kind of them getting off a helicopter. But it's actually pretty good, if you ask me, song. And it shows them playing it live, shows the camera, like hopping around the audience or whatever. It shows pretty girls singing, because they have the stripper-looking backup singers at this point in Motley Crue, right?
Yeah, at this point in time, we're not making any pretenses. You know what it is. You've got these dudes on stage. You've got 2 or 3 women who, basically are strippers singing, I guess. Backup performance art is probably more what it's
they
all
look
about.
like strippers. I don't
do.
think they're actual strippers. They're actually singers. But if you're going on tour with Motley Crue, you got to look a certain way on stage.
Correct. But I always thought it was cool. You mentioned the helicopter, like it was just the rock and roll deal, the rock and roll fantasy camp. They get off there, they go to this huge place. Where is it? Alpine Valley Music Theater, which what looks like 100,000 people there, and they just go out there and do it. And it's a story, I guess, about a guy who meets 2 women and they end up being together, the 2 women.
Yeah.
And I guess that happens a lot to Vince. Okay.
I guess
It's just crazy. But it's just about what you want it to be about. Just crazy sexual encounters every day, all day long. It's whoever you're with now, tomorrow it'll be somebody different.
Now I used to kind of see this should change and leave the same. I guess that's the name of her game. Yeah, I really used to love a good kiss. She discovered it's gotta be a sexual thing.
That's right. And that's just what they have to do. They
And
have
it
to
just
go.
never ends,
It
right?
never-
It's just, and I think that's what they were selling too, is this nonstop party.
That's right. It's like, oh, you've got a girlfriend and you guys are going to go down on each other before we all get together.
Cool.
Yeah. You know, this, was it Tuesday again already? Yeah. But the riff, I think, is pretty good. I mean, I
Yeah.
actually think the song is pretty good. And again, Bob Rock knows what he's doing. Get these big choruses that you can scream along to. Same old,
Right.
same old situation. You got to get Vince to sing it, you know, and they actually do a pretty good job in the movie of like putting this part in there. It's like Vince, he's just kind of singing it okay. You got to go get him pissed off so he'll get up there and really belt this thing out. And he's sitting there singing it, just flipping off Nikki the whole time. Like, it paid off. I mean, Nikki knew what he was talking about.
Mm-hmm.
But I used to call her Cindy. She changed her name to Sin. I guess that's the name of her game.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I really used to love her. Then the kitty she discovered.
Right.
Can't imagine what that is. It's got to be a sexual thing. I mean, I guess so, yes. Vince, it's always a sexual thing, I would say. But, you know, look, I mean, you know what you're getting with them, and it's pretty good, especially compared to the next one, Sticky Sweet.
Right.
Trying to be Aerosmith with that opening riff. That is an Aerosmith ripoff. And you've got the big chant, Sticky Sweet. I mean, this is... The production's good. I think it sounds good production-wise.
I mean, I like the riff. I think it's cool, but you're right. They are trying to be like Aerosmith, but I mean, I think because he always kind of played it low-key and they never really promoted Mick that much because, I mean, what are you going to do? Like, hey, now we go live to Mick Mars. Oh, hey, what's going on? I'm all, you know, twist. So I think he doesn't get the credit that he deserves. He's a bad mofo on the guitar.
He is. You're right. I put the riff is good, but it's also kind of generic. I mean,
Right.
like it doesn't really stand out to me. And now, when I've done good, she slaps me on the ass.
Right.
It takes more than 10 seconds to satisfy this lass. Ooh, all the time. Sticky sweet, sticky, sticky, sticky child. She's so sticky sweet, sticky sweet. Oh, so bad.
I kind of feel like that they had the 5 singles, right? Or 4 singles, whatever they had on here.
5.
And then then it was like that can't be the whole record. What else do you have? Okay, hold on. I'll be right back. It just kind of seems like they tried really hard on a couple of these and not so hard on the rest.
When she calls me up, my voice starts to shake. She says, "Come right over, right away. Oh, good God, there's a fire in my pants." Then lightning strikes.
Your pants?
And she laughs that evil laugh. I mean, you know, okay. I know what it's going to be about, but the singing together is more cheesy than it is like pump your fist in the air. This is more like, oh, God, guys. And then, of course, she goes down. You know this is about fellatio. Is this the most epic song about oral sex?
Now, wait a minute.
Ever.
First of all, you don't know what this means. You might have a hard time. I don't think the audience is going to figure this out. So how are we going to fix this? At the beginning, we're going to have the sound of a zipper going down and then laughing. That will hammer it home.
Right. It's called She Goes Down. Okay. Yeah. Some people don't know what that means.
Right. So let's make it crystal clear with the sound effects.
Yes, exactly. Sassy little lassie walking right past me down in Tennessee. I love Southern ladies. They just know how to please. It's like connecting the dots. Start at the bottom and lick it to the top.
Right.
Okay.
Okay.
Lick those lips, do you upright, up and down, round and round the world, spit it out. You know, she makes me feel good. See you out in Hollywood. Flat on my back, she goes down. For backstage pass, she goes down.
Well,
With all my friends, she goes down. She gives heart attack. She goes down. So this is about a girl who earned her way onto the bus, and it's exactly what you think about. I mean, I don't know if Bob had to be like, can you change these lyrics so there's a little mystery to this, or no, dude, I want him to know.
I'm leaving. I can't take this anymore. Just let me know when you're done with this. I'm gonna turn the tape on and walk out. And then to have everybody else, you were mentioning the additional performers on this one,
Yeah.
Hey, you want to come in and sing this song? Wait, what are the lyrics? She goes down. Perfect. I'd love to.
Yeah. At 3.5 minutes, it was too long, if you ask me, to be honest with you. Yeah. How long was this? It's 4.5, but at 3.5, it was already too long. So it's like, oh God, you're killing me. But yeah, it does have some interesting guest stars on it. Robin Zander and Rick Nielsen. But that's all we need to really talk about on that one, I believe.
Yes.
Because we've got Don't Go Away Mad. Just Go Away.
Mm-hmm.
The fourth single on the record. It was May 28th of 1990, back with Rattlesnake Shake. 19 on Billboard, 13 on Mainstream Rock. There's a black and white video, plus it had some blue kind of sepia in the video, with Vince kind of starts in a loft. There's a girl kind of walking away.
Oh, she just got her marching papers.
Yeah, and she breaks her heel, so she hands it to a homeless guy. Mm-hmm. And there's Vince just kind of trying to get going. Nikki's calling him from the street. Vince is throwing the phone across the room. But I'm looking at like Nikki and Tommy because they're walking down the street. The skateboarder's like, oh, dude, I got to get your autograph kind of thing. And I'm looking at them like they look so young. They look so good at this point. They were still good looking. Sure, they had tattoos, but they weren't just absolutely covered in them the way they are now. Of course, they're older. Nikki's put on some weight. Tommy hasn't. He's still in sick shape, like no fat on him anywhere. But they were so better looking back then. And of course, Vince, before the plastic surgery and all the weight gain and all that kind of stuff. They were young and good looking and not completely inked. And I could see, MTV wants these guys on all the time, and they're kind of like they're shooting pool. They're trying to hook up with Vince until they finally get to the rehearsal space. Like, okay, now we'll go. And girl, don't go away mad. Girl, just go away.
I do like that sentiment. Yeah, don't go away mad. Just go away. Like, I don't even want to deal with you anymore. I don't want to hear about this. I don't want to look at your face anymore. I think it's interesting that in the beginning of the video, it's a guy throwing out garbage. And then she comes out, and it appears that Vince is in New York City. New York City's a dump. It's just a dump. It's going to remind you of bad times. You need to get yourself to L.A. That's where the party is.
Exactly. Get out of there, man. And it's not bad. It's not a bad song, but it's, the sentiment, and it sounds very much like an Oasis song. Like, just be on your way and stop crying your heart out. Yeah, don't go away mad, just go away. We were two kids in love just trying to find our way. Held our dreams in our hands, let our minds run away, smiling through some pain. Yeah, we grew up, did some growing up together, sure, but that's over. And it's time for us to go our separate ways.
Right. I've got other things to do. And by other things, I mean other chicks.
Exactly.
And I always love this because, I've got to get back to my buddies, back to LA. How am I going to get there? Well, on the custom Dr. Feelgood jet, of course. Yes. And then he shows up to the studio where everybody's hanging out for him, and everybody's just, they couldn't be happier to have him back in the band. And
hey, Vince is back.
You're lying to me.
Yeah, they're all starting to have issues at this point.
Because I'm sure when he walked in, they were like, "Oh, Vince is here again. Cool." And then I think the thing that sucked is that I think fighting was Nikki and Vince. I think Tommy and Mick were just kind of like, "Oh, is this going to be a good day or a bad day?"
Yeah, Mick's just kind of getting through. It's like, oh, these people. Why did I get in with these crazy people? And Tommy's just a kid. The funny thing was in the movie, because they're waiting on Vince, and Vince is going through trying to be sober, and it's hard for him or whatever. And they're waiting on him. And Tommy's like, we could change singers. Van Halen did it. It's like, yeah, dude, we know. You know how we know? Because every time we bring up Vince, you talk about Van Halen changed their singer. Every single time. Shut up. It's all well and good. And then you're all sober and you're looking at each other like, duh, what the hell,
If I have to look at your face for one more day, I'm going to choke you out. All those things that you thought were funny when you were drunk, they're not funny anymore. Now they're just super annoying.
We're in this hellhole on the Sunset Strip, and you all live there, and there's cigarette burns on the floor, and you're all screwing in front of each other, and it's just a dirty, ugly place. Like, yeah, this is great. Once you've got money and you've got relationships outside the band, like marriages, like wives and kids and stuff like that, and you're all trying to be sober, suddenly you don't need each other as much as you once did.
Right.
And that's kind of the way it was. Now it wraps up with Time for Change.
Uh-huh.
And I'm like, is this like Wind of Change by the Scorpions?
Okay.
But this is so lame. This is so lame. I mean, I give Nikki credit for maybe trying to do something a little deeper. It's not just hot rods and chicks, but it's a miss as far as I'm concerned. This is not...
So I've got a note here. This sounds like it was written by somebody else, doesn't fit in with the rest of the record. And yeah, this could have been anybody else at this time. It's just everything about it is generic.
Well, and somebody else did help him write this. Donna McDaniel.
Okay.
So that's why it doesn't sound
there you
right.
Go. Way to go, Donna.
It doesn't sound like Motley Crue to me. I mean, I get it. You're trying to tell a story and maybe go a little bit deeper. Maybe that was Bob Rock saying, hey, maybe you try something. Heard kids telling me how they lost all the faith. They've been talking about world peace, the wars in the streets, the lines on their faces are so deep. And revolution to reach out and touch today. We're overdue, child. Now it's time for change. Nothing stays the same. I feel the future in the hands of our youth. No more lies or tired old fools tell our future with tarot cards. Screw that. It's time for revolution. Well, but it wasn't really a call to revolution with the way the song goes. I just think it's a weak way to wrap up the album. I mean, don't go away, mad, just go away. That's a great play to wrap up an album, right? You're going away.
See, I was thinking if you were going to ask me, I would have taken Kickstart My Heart and put that at the end because they have that flourish kind of at the end where they have the drums and everything. It's almost like it's the end of the night.
Yeah, but you can't make them wait that long for Kickstart My Heart.
Oh, I can.
Man.
I can do whatever I want. I'm Bob Rock.
No, man.
Damn it.
You could have pushed it up. I mean, it could have been ahead of Rattlesnake Shake, or they could have put Without You in front of it. Ooh. And then, then it's even heavier and faster and harder. I don't know, but this is the one that cemented their legacy and allowed them to keep going to this day for the most part, right? I mean, the songs on this, although they had other hits, obviously, the collection of the songs on this is what kind of continues to bring people out. And though they kind of fell apart for a while after this, they're in the top of the world. Huge tour, just making an amazing amount of money. And what's his name? Chip Magoo, Doc McGee, who's been managing Kiss kind of solely for a long time now. Well, that was what he was in the Scooby-Doo movie. He was Chip Magoo. This is when he was just helping them rake it in. I'm pretty sure he's on top of all that. Nobody screws with Doc. Like because he used to be a drug dealer. So like nobody messes with him. Venues, promoters, you're going to pay him or else kind of thing. I think he was out there making sure they rake it all in. And they could have been done after this. And creatively, they kind of were, certainly to the mainstream.
Yeah. But this was the record that made them mainstream, that introduced them to kind of the psyche of everybody. And you're right, it's what allows them to keep going today. I mean, I know there are people that say that record with John Corabi is pretty good. I've listened to it a handful of times, but that was the wrong time to change lead singers, and that didn't do them any favors. So this is the one that keeps them going today.
That's right.
Now, you said you didn't listen to any of these demos, and I do want to bring one thing up
Okay.
on this. They have it because usually you don't really get to hear a whole lot of demos because I mean they're not really for public consumption. They're just
Right.
rough sketches. And I think they put those on here because they didn't really have anything else. And in 2003, when everybody was doing remasters, we need extra content. What have you got?
Right.
Demos. But the cool thing was the Dr. Feelgood demo, which did actually include TNT at the beginning without the speaking.
Okay.
The lyrics are totally different. It's actually Vince is Dr. Feelgood. I'm the one they call Dr. Feelgood.
Ah.
And so and it's not about a drug dealer, it's about him being in this band. So my point is, at some point in time, they got to it, and maybe it was Bob, I don't know, and said, "This isn't. I like the concept, I like the music. The lyrics aren't working. Let's completely change that around." The rest of these are all about the same, like they're cleaned up, but that was the one to be like somebody got the idea. We need to flip the script to make this work.
Well,
And it's
that's interesting.
Yeah, it's interesting to me to hear because you don't really get that look at most of these demos.
No, and there was one song on there that was just kind of not released, called "Get It for Free." It was an unreleased track.
Yeah.
Again, it wasn't 100% finished. It's one of those songs that's maybe it's 80% finished.
Mm-hmm.
I know they say, well, it's an unreleased finished track. It's finished-ish. It probably could have benefited from some more. But this Donna McDaniel was kind of one of those girls who came to Hollywood, wanted to be an actor, I think.
Okay.
And did, I mean, she's in some scary pictures, which they always need hot girls for, to run around with their shirts ripped up. She was in Hollywood Hot Tubs in 1984, but she also performed many of the songs on the soundtrack, and she went to have, a successful career, singing with Billy Idol. And I think she was a backup singer with Motley Crue on this tour, but she already on the Girls tour, she had already sung with them. And so that's why she got a writing credit with Nikki on this one. So she was a hottie back in the day, but now she's like 70 years old. Like the rest of us are much older. I mean, senior class of 72. She must be 72. I wonder who in the band she hooked up with. Because there's no way that you're that hot and you're a backup singer on the tour and none of those guys hooked up with you. It's just,
Right.
I mean, I
Yeah.
don't. I mean, I would figure
there's no possible way that didn't happen.
there's a prerequisite, isn't
Right.
there? I mean, it's like, how do you get them ready? How can we be sure that she's right? Because they would have them in the lace and like bustiers and, high heels, and you have to, right? I mean, that's.
Well, you're selling the whole experience, yes.
Yeah. So anyway, I actually go to the greatest hits a lot for Motley Crue. This has got to be their best. And so I'm glad they did it. I'm glad they were sober for a while. And I think they're back to being mostly sober now. And Vince obviously likes food more than alcohol these
Correct.
days, it would seem. And Mick's on drugs, but they're prescription for his back. It's shocking to me that no one from Motley Crue is dead. It's shocking to me that all the original members are still alive.
Right. And I think that for the most part, they're pretty much all the same dude. I don't think there's that much growth. Like you listen to Tommy Lee, and he's still fuck man. And then oh my god, I was driving my car. The other night, these hot chicks were there. Yeah, like he's married to some like 22-year-old or
I'm like,
something.
dude, yeah, I know you're 60. I mean, I know you still are this huge rock star and you're still in sick shape and you still got that package, which we all became familiar with not so long after this.
That is correct. Yeah.
But I mean, come on, man. Don't you want to grow up just a little bit, you know? Vince has been married like 6 times or something like that. Nicky's the one who seems to have it together. Like, he moved to Wyoming so he could kind of get away from all of that. He's got this nice, quiet life. I'm sure it's interesting when he picks up the kids from school.
Right? Hey, is that Nicky Six? Of course it is. Who couldn't be anybody else?
Like, you know, and I'm sure they go to a good school, but I mean, the Wyoming crowd versus Nicky Six, that's got to be interesting for the other parents in their carpool line. That was me and Jackson going over Motley Crue's Dr. Feelgood from 1989 as it turns 35 here on The Wolf. And if you come to Motley Crue looking for some Bob Dylan or worldly lyrics, you're just in the wrong place, right? You need big fat riffs, big sing-along choruses, talking about girls and partying, and really that's it. And while some would call that sophomoric or it's juvenile or what have you, they know what they're doing. They know who they are. They know who their audience is. They know what they like to do, and they know what they want to sing about. And guess what, folks? It's worked. Last year, they were on tour doing stadiums around the world with Def Leppard. Yeah, they may not look that good anymore. Yeah, they may be piping some stuff in, but they're piping it in to songs that you know and you love, and you can stick your fist in the air and say, yeah, I remember this one from my teenage days, and I'm going to scream along. So it's fun. Take it for what it is. Don't talk about what it's not. I know I ragged on it a lot during the show, but the world needs Motley Crue, and they're very LA Sunset Strip, that whole late 70s through the 80s thing, where all the hair bands, they were the kings of the Sunset Strip. Nobody did it quite like Motley Crue. And so we want to know, folks, did we get something right? Did we get something wrong? Did we miss the point? Did we leave out your favorite part? Email us and let us know. It's uglyamericanwerewolf@gmail.com. You can let us know the bands, the albums, the concerts, the DVDs, the books, the rock properties you want to hear us talk about here on the show. Be sure to download and subscribe wherever you get your podcast. And if you're thinking about it, guys, hey, please go out and give us a 5-star review. It just helps us grow the show, helps us find more rock fans like you. And if you send it to us or we get word of it, we might just read it on an episode. Thanks as always to Pantheon Podcast for making us part of the family. And thanks to rarevinyl.com, where if you use the code UGLY, you can save 10% off your entire order, whether it's of Motley Crue gear or anything else that catches your eye. That's it for this week. Lots of great album reviews and some cool interviews coming up that I know you're not going to want to miss. So stay tuned. And to all you rockers all around the world, be cool and keep doing what you do to keep rock alive.